Okay guys, this is Dr. Drake 63 here today. We're going to look at a weapons mounted light. This particular one is the Streamlight ProTac Rail Mount 2. And this boasts 625 lumens of output, which is a vast improvement over the 200 lumens I have on my Enforce WML. We'll compare that a little bit here in a minute. But not much of an unboxing when it comes in a plastic light. I've seen this as a very well reviewed light, and it is a rail mounted light that you don't need hardware. You can just turn it with a thumb screw. And this particular one, there is a ProTac Rail Mount 1, which is shorter because it only holds one battery. This one holds two. And has features more power. So in addition, this comes with a pressure switch, which I'm usually reticent to use those just because I take these on and off of a firearm quite a bit. But we're gonna give this a good looking at and talk about it a little bit compared to some other weapons lights we've had. I've had good luck with the Streamlight. You might have seen my review on the TLR3, and that's been a good weapons light for me so far. So let's see, what do we have? Okay, so I've got three different weapon mounted lights out real quick. Today, obviously, we're reviewing this ProTac. What you have here is an Enforce WML, and this particular one is 200 lumens. Okay, so no contest in terms of brightness. I mean, this is going to be something that just isn't going to be anywhere near as far-reaching at 200 lumens as this one is. And when we do some nighttime shots here a little bit later in the video, you'll see that. But mostly wanted to talk about the way that this particular one mounts and some things I like and don't like about it. And here you have a 200 lumen. This is also a Streamlight. This is a TRL3. And the TLR has served me pretty well. Right now it's sitting on top of a Glock 19. And I was shooting the heck out of it with the 45 caliber Glock 20. And outside of getting some carbon buildup on the light because of where it was positioned, the light did great. So that's the kind of thing you want to see. Now, I don't have the ability to show you videos of me shooting something at night because the ranges I go to and so forth, I don't have that kind of ability. So something to do later out in the woods or something of that in a future video. But mostly just looking at ergos and telling you what I do and don't like about the lights, and then we can look at some comparisons. First up, I want to talk a little bit about this setup and why I don't want to use a tape or a pressure switch. And the main reason is I have this about where I want it anyway. Okay, when I grip the AR, I'm typically gripping it about like this. Okay, a little bit more of an overhand grip. Occasionally, I'll get a little bit of the foregrip in my hand. I really don't ever grip it like that, okay? But where it needs to be is convenient to turn this light on. And more than anything else, what I found is it's right here. Now, if I was gonna put a pressure switch on it, I'm gonna be careful it isn't a place where my hand goes. And since my hand kind of goes all over the place, you know, it would have to be something that would either be secured to the top of the rail over here on the side, and really this is the most convenient for me. So that's why you see this position for a rail light, both on this fuller size AR and on this SBR and 300 blackout. In both cases, I'm able to access that light very easily. Okay, now I have seen a lot of in what I call the follow the leader rifle setups. In other words, everybody wants to do the same setup. And what you see a lot right now with lights and lasers is they'll take this front sight and they'll set it back so that the light can be mounted up top and in front of the front sight. And the only thing I don't like about that is now you're shortening your sight radius. And you say, well, okay, well, if we're using a dot anyway, who cares? If you have backup sights, hey, it'll do the whole thing. I like having my sight all the way out on the front. I just do. And yeah, okay, if I'm using a red dot, it doesn't matter. And then when you look at this SBR, well, you have to. I mean, you can't have your sight radius be the same as a doggone pistol. So that's another reason, but I won't play follow the leader on my rifle setup for that reason. Now what you will see is some of the shorter lights. Again, they'll move this front sight back, maybe to about here, and then you'll see a laser and a laser or a light, okay? So as you can see, looking forward at this, you know, this is sitting up away from the rail a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit, okay? And if you compare that here to the WML, it does sit a little bit tighter to the rail, okay? Now, at the distances where these lights are gonna really make a difference in what you're looking at, being up off the rail a little bit, and certainly whatever position around the rail, does not matter at all. I mean, if we're going to go with that logic, then I guess you better have all of your optics ought to be sitting right on the rail. In other words, it really isn't going to make a difference, especially at the distances that we're talking about. It's going to illuminate what you need to illuminate quite well. So I don't buy into the thought that you need to have it either on top or you need to have it located on the bottom, or it needs to be at 11 o'clock or whatever. It needs to be wherever you can comfortably get your hand on this rifle, and that's what counts the most. Again, as discussed, like I said, you've got a little bit of an offset here, but what I like about that is this really gives me the ability to still get my hand where I like it to be when I shoot, which is not like this. But I don't go all the way out front like some guys do either. I like a little bit of a combination right here, as you see. And I have no problem reaching out and turning this light on. No problem at all. Now, we are going to hear from some people, I'm sure, who are going to say, oh man, you know, you do have to move your hand a little bit out of a comfortable position. And maybe it's not quite as ergonomically friendly to an on-off switch type of situation where it's just a momentary on, right? That may or may not be the case, but again, I need something that is not going to get in the way of my hand, and I don't want to give up my sight radius. So that's, as you see here, same goes with this SBR. Now on the SBR, because of the shorter barrel, you know, this is where I'm wanting to put my hand. It's not going to happen. So I am actually going to use this vertical foregrip as an actual grip and not just a bit of a stop. But here again, I have the ability to get on this light, no problem. It's real easy. Real quick, I just moved my thumb a little bit. That right there is going to do it for me. So that's kind of how I view that as far as using a nighttime setup with something like this. Something else that's important to me, and maybe another reason why I'm not a big fan of using pressure switches, I want whatever light I put on a firearm to be something that is relatively easy and quick to take off. For a lot of reasons, mostly because I'm going to go to the range and shoot during the day. I don't typically need to have my light on there for weight reasons, for a lot of reasons. And so I want it to come off. So how easy is it to take off? If we look at this WML, you basically have a little cleat here that you unscrew and it comes right off. You can see right there it's spring loaded. So that's how you attach, okay? As far as this particular Streamlight goes, this is real nice because all you're doing is you've got a nice metal and you turn that. So you've just got a metal knob that you turn and that comes off real easily. So very quickly, I'm without the extra bulk, without the extra weight, the extra whatever. And that's the kind of thing that you could just very easily put in a backpack, right? The weight is next to nothing. And you could put this in a backpack and hey, it's nighttime, I'm gonna shoot. How hard is it to go ahead and just crank this on? And then you tighten that down and you're good to go. Okay. WML, same thing. Okay. Now, this tends to be a little bit more of a wiggly type of affair, but it does the trick on and off real quickly. In terms of comparing this Streamlight and this WML side by side, a couple things to notice here. One is made out of metal. This is completely made out of metal in terms of your rail mount, in terms of your knob, in terms of the casing itself. It's all made out of metal. This is all made out of plastic, and it's hardened plastic. It's nothing that I am 100% sure is going to break, but at the end of the day, I'm willing to bet that if I was the kind of guy that wanted to go ahead and take these products and torture test them, i.e. throw money out the window trying to break them, this is going to hold up. This is going to hold up better just because of the way it's made. Is it going to hold up a lot better? I don't know. It's going to be easier to crack this polymer though, and I think that a system for attachment you've got right here is what I consider to be your weak link. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's just a little cleat in there that tightens down, and I believe that's going to be your weak link at the end of the day. Could be wrong, you know. Everybody thought Glocks were going to break when those came out. I've, by the way, heard some really bad things said about the Enforce, and in particular, oh, it's just cheap and it's not very good quality. I would disagree with that. I think that's from the same group of folks that think any parts that are made out of polymer or plastic are crap. And like I said, happy to talk to you about that anytime. So, but in terms of what people will talk about, you either like something made out of metal or you don't. You do have a scenario going on where you're going to have some components that are made out of polymer. Right here, right here, right here, right here, and so forth. So I think we just are conditioned to trust metal, and I get that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that metal's always the way to go. You're going to see that including the rail mount, this weighs 5.1 ounces. So let's see how that compares to the Enforce, 2.95 ounces. Just getting a view of some brightness here and so forth and so on. Do want to go ahead and point out to you that you know, here you've got a muzzle device and the blast ports, for lack of a better word, going back this far. So you're going to get some buildup, some residue buildup on the front of this light if it's mounted up close this far, because that's where your flash comes. So that means you have flame and gunpowder coming out of there, and that is gonna get on there, just like it will here. With this type of compensator, everything happening at the end, here you're not going to see that. But just something to think about is if you are going to fire this a lot with your light on, how far up next to your compensator, the end of the barrel, is going to have a determining factor with whether the light's going to get dirty or not. So something to think about. Earlier we were talking about the pressure switch. Basically, all you do, this is the normal on-off end plate. Basically, all you do with the pressure switch, which same thing, has a sealed O-ring around it to make this watertight. You basically just screw this guy on, and now you've got a switch that can be activated either by this strip right here or this simple on-off switch. So it comes with either an adhesive or some zip ties in which you can mount this wherever you like. You could find a good place that makes sense for you. As I mentioned, it's just not my preference to put this kind of a scenario on the rifle. Now, I know that there's going to be guys that really do have duty rifles, and my definition of a duty rifle is that when someone has official duty that involves a rifle, it's a duty rifle. For the rest of us, it's a made-up word that has little import. But in terms of where would you put this, as I showed you earlier with my hand, move my hand around so much, where would I want it to be to not hit it? And that's what I like about using just the regular end plate on that, or the end switch, is basically that's that particular situation. It's a little bit more deliberate, and I have to try to do it, and that's a little bit more important to me. So, but for those of you guys that like this feature, it has it, and it seems like it's a very nice one too. I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that compared to some I've seen, this plate seems well made and that it would be durable. Comes with two of these CR123A 3-volt lithium batteries, and on high brightness claims that this will last better than 2 hours, and on lower settings quite a bit more. Now, by lower settings, what do I mean by that? Well, there's a procedure by where you can program different sequences or levels of brightness for each of your instant on and permanent on settings, okay? And it's called the 10-click scenario. You click this thing 9 times, and on the 10th time, you have the ability to cycle through these different settings. This is something that's covered quite extensively in the owner's manual. So there is that. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time going through that. The way it comes is you can hold it down for instant on and off for just bright. You can double click it quickly and you get strobe instant on, and if you go ahead and just depress it with the strobe instant on, it stays on. And there you go. So that's the factory setting. That's the way it comes out of the box. And you can change it. You can get a lower intensity light if that's what you prefer to the strobe. I don't need a lower intensity light. I probably don't need the strobe. But if I need something other than the brightest, at least in my case, it's going to be the strobe. Because I could see how that would disorient the living heck out of whoever is giving you a hard time. And maybe you can make somebody just get the heck out of your grill without even having to shoot them. That would be better yet. And if you've got that pointing at you, it's going to be quite disoriented. And I'm getting disoriented just sitting here watching that. But if you're on the other side of this and you're looking through a red dot, it's not that big a deal, really. It's not as disoriented to be on the back side of this as it is to be on the front side of this. As you guys know, I'm not opposed to spending a little bit of money on decent gear.
And when I looked at the Streamlight, I did compare very heavily against the top end Surefires that are out there. And probably someday I will go ahead and purchase one of those Surefire weapons mounted lights. But to be honest, I didn't see what kind of value I was getting by dropping an extra couple $100. We all know that you get what you pay for in this business, and you know, a guy that's going to go out and buy a complete BCM rig or top it off with something like a Trigicon, that obviously I am a believer you do get what you pay for, and a lot of times I found that you do get some better gear when you do spend the extra money. However, and with respect to these weapons lights, the fact of the matter is, I'll need one to fail me or have a bad experience with one, I think, before I decide that I absolutely have to spend $360 on a system which is designed more than anything else to be used with a pressure switch. And I've already made it really clear that that's not my preference. The dog's already made it clear that that's not her preference too. But in terms of being able to illuminate what you're looking at and out to distance, 200 lumens wasn't going to be enough for me. That's why the Enforce has its limitations. I'm not going to show a video of me taking this to the range in the daytime and doing a bunch of shooting with this light hanging off. I've seen that as a way that a lot of the guys will review these, and it just doesn't do much for me. I want to see how this thing shoots at night, and firsthand's the way I want to do it.
Okay, the first thing we're going to look at, you can't even really see it, but straight down this driveway, right to the left underneath that street light, sitting out at about 85 yards, is a house. It's not illuminated at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to illuminate that house using the WML 200 lumen light. Okay, you can kind of see the house. Now you see it, now you don't, now you see it. Okay, now for point of reference, now we're going to use the Streamlight. See what 625 lumens looks like. You see that? That's a drastic difference. Out at 85 yards, it completely illuminates what you're looking at. So there's really no comparison there. Very effective, very bright light. Looking at some things a little bit closer. We're looking at a tree out here. That's about 20 yards away. And this is with the WML. Looking at that same tree, using the Streamlight, it's just so much brighter. It lights it up to a much greater extent. It's not only a lot more visible, but it's a lot easier to make out what's going on. I hope you've enjoyed my rather non-technical review of the Streamlight ProTac Rail Mount 2. I've enjoyed bringing it to you. This is Dr. Drake 63, as always, reminding you, join the NRA, and thanks for watching.